Hello, today I wanted to speak about a few works of non-fiction, and I say non-fiction because it's really just philosophy, and I'll make a video about that eventually. But yeah, basically a few works of philosophy that I recommend that are very short, easy in each of their subjects, and in most of the cases quite good. Some of these are more beginner focused than others, and I'll make sure to point that out for those of you who are already familiar with the topics that these books talk about. But yeah, that's it. Let's get to it. The first one is The Horrors and Absurdities of Religion by Schopenhauer. It's actually the light is not too good. Can you see it now? Yeah, there you are. So yeah, The Horrors and Absurdities of Religion. You will see many of these very slim penguin editions. I'm really fan of this. This is the kind of book that you can carry anywhere and can be read like in no time. The reason why I recommend this one particularly is because there are many sort of like atheist critiques of religion, especially of either focused only on like Islamic religions or focused only on Christianity, that tend to like rely a lot on science and stuff like that. But Schopenhauer, being a philosopher, you get like a much more sort of like ethical, philosophical approach to the things that are wrong with religion, the things that don't work. So that's number one. Number two, it's one of the few books that I recommend from this author. I've read a lot of Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre, and this is probably his most clear book. He's more like in the book in which his philosophy comes more clearly across, and actually enjoyable. It's basically that is it. It's you could take this as an introduction to existentialism. Existentialism as the belief, among many other things, the belief that the existence precedes the essence, so that you don't act in the way that you are, that you become what you are by what you do. That'd be like the easiest way to simplify it. So yeah, this is definitely a book I would recommend for someone who wants to be initiated on existentialism. The next book is George Orwell on writing. I recommend all of George Orwell's non-fiction. I like it much more than his fiction. I have read 1984 and Animal Farm. I think Animal Farm is still the better book, but my favorite book from George Orwell is his Down and Out in London and Paris, and many of his non-fiction essays I prefer as well. This one in particular is about writing. I think you will see a couple more books about writing here in this pile, but this one is one that I like a lot because it was the first book I read in English about the topic of writing, if I remember well, and because I just have some place in my heart for Orwell. I just really like him, and yeah, it is enjoyable. I definitely recommend it if you are interested in the topic and you want some clear writing. That's what he always offers. The next one, a bit more complex, is The Postmodern Condition, A Report on Knowledge. This book has, on its last 10 pages, are the actual postmodern condition, so like the actual what is postmodernism. So you have the first part is the postmodern condition, and the last 10 pages is what is postmodernism. Those last 10 pages can be read separately. They are much easier to understand. And if you are interested in knowing more about sort of like modernism, postmodernism, and whatever comes after, this is definitely a place I recommend as a start. I think it's incredibly accessible, especially for him to be like a French philosopher. Like, it doesn't normally come across, like, you don't normally get like philosophy written by French philosophers that is easy to understand and that is like direct in that sense. So this is actually like I'd say this was an enjoyable read. It's actually just, you can read it quite fast, and yeah, and if even then, if it lets you studying students, you can jump directly into the last part and read just what is postmodernism, because it will definitely give you, yeah, it will definitely give you what you need to start with, and then you can go back to the beginning if you want, whenever you want, or go for something else. Yeah, that's it. This one might be my favorite book on this pile. This is anthropology, so philosophy. And it's Mark Auge. It's the non-places. This essay is actually divided into non-places and thesis of over-modernity. I think that's the translation. So, la sobremodernidad, over-modernity is how I guess it would be translated in English. This is just an incredible read. Like it's a very interesting concept. You can see sort of like a picture of what you could normally find in an airport. That is not a coincidence. The theory of non-places is actually, maybe I should make a video part, because I remember a lot of this book and it's so interesting. The idea of non-places is places that are like removed from their anthropological value. It's basically airports, hotels, places that you could be anywhere on the world, and they would look exactly the same. Resorts as well. The point of those places is that, like, because they are removed of their anthropological value, in a sense, it's like they are sterile. Nothing grows there in terms of actual interaction. They separate humans from each other. Subway is also like another example of that. You can be in the airport in China and in the airport in New York and in the airport in France, and they're all the same, bigger, smaller, but their architecture, the colors, the processes that happen inside, everything is the same. And the theory of over-modernity comes to it's a conclusion that basically we live in a process of creation of known places. We are sort of like slowly making the world a known place, which is to say, a space that is like a constant state of homelessness. Is sort of like what is sort of being generalized. That's sort of like the main thesis. But I think I will make a video about this because it's actually quite complex and there's a lot to talk about. I just realized now, so I totally recommend this book. It's so interesting. The over-modernity, the reason why it's called over-modernity is because from Mark Auge's perspectives, it's the result of a state of excess. So you have an excess of time, in the sense like generations having expanded lifetime, like our lifetime is bigger, an excess of space that is contradictory, because in a sense we have less space in the sense of in the sense of like being more compacted, higher populations and everything, but it's more space both in a visual, in a sort of like mental and physical sense. You can visit the whole, like a few decades ago, a few generations ago, you could never go further than the next town, and now you can go to the other side of the planet within hours. So the world feels smaller because you can cover the whole world in no time with the mediums of transport that we have now, but also it is bigger in the sense of like your actual picture of all the possible places that you can go to is also bigger. So it's like our minds are globalized in that sense. And he has many, also like the expansion of the ego. That's also a part of, is the third, sort of like the third form of excess. Those are like the three pillars of over-modernity, and the conclusion, the result, is the creation of non-places. Again, as I said, places that are removed from their anthropological value, from the emergence of any cultural customs or connections between humans. You wouldn't, like, in a sense, like places like the subway are constructed with the idea of disallowing, of trying to evade the possible human interactions. You have to get from A to B. You are not there to socialize. But more and more of our world is turning that way. and Mark Auge obviously thinks that is a problem, and so do I. And this is a great book. It's a bit of a hard read. It's definitely gonna challenge you if you're not used to this kind of nonfiction, but I found it incredibly, yeah, just so good. I probably will reread this book and then talk about it more deeply. Next book is Capitalist Realism. I mean, this is, in my opinion, like the best book that Mark Fisher wrote, and the only one that I personally really like from him. The reason why I really like this one specifically is because it captures one of the main mental states, especially of the time of Mark Fisher, and that is of Mark Fisher when he wrote this, and that is the idea that capitalism is reality. That is not that we cannot have any alternative to capitalism, that none of them would work. Is that even to think about an alternative to capitalism sounds like unrealistic. So it's the greatest achievement in terms of generalizing the idea that capitalism is here to stay and cannot be changed. And yeah, I just think that is a very clear book. It also talks about mental health and about the results that capitalism can, about like the consequences of capitalism and of that mentality, of that feeling trapped in ever producing industry. And yeah, I mean that this is a great book. It's super easy to read, super fast. It's clearly, when I read it, which was 1 year or 2 years ago, I definitely found a lot in it. I don't remember much now from it, but the main idea is that. So yeah, highly recommend it. Hannah Arendt, Freedom to be Free. This book talks about like labor and about like different forms of freedom in a political sense, in a social sense. I just really like Hannah Arendt. I don't think there is much to be said about this book, just like this in 2 minutes. But definitely, if you're interested in just learning more about freedom and what it means for us and how it is taken away from us and what we can do about it, Hannah Arendt is just great. I love Hannah Arendt. But this is still philosophy, even if she thought she wasn't a philosopher. This is more, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Kant, but this is the one book that I would recommend to anyone from him, because it's really good to understand sort of like the state of mind of the Enlightenment. This is the book where the very famous sort of like affirmation of sapere aude, dare to know, came from. It's a very short book, and it just gives you a really, really good idea of the main ideas of the Enlightenment, sort of like dare to know, feel free to think and to speak, but obey. That was sort of like part of the whole thing. And yeah, I think definitely the best book for like the most conventional generalized idea of what the Enlightenment is. Then you can move on to more transgressive ideas like that of Rousseau with his 2 discourses on the origins of inequality and the other one on the arts and the humanities or something like that, human sciences. I don't remember, but yeah, I did read those 2 last time and they're really good. Rousseau in general is a very, I think it's a very enjoyable read, and those 2 are incredibly fast to read, also quite short, so you could read them complementary with this. Yeah, going a bit further back, this is one of the few Plato's dialogues that I would recommend to anyone, because yeah, I mean, it's the Symposium. It's definitely in terms of literary value, this is the best dialogue from Plato. If you are into philosophy, you should read all of Plato's dialogues, but this one is very interesting. And yeah, it's a discussion about really a lot. You know, it seems to be a discussion about truth, about freedom at times, really about love most of the time. But overall, it ends up being a discussion about philosophy itself. And each of the members of this symposium sort of like presents a different view. And they are sort of like confronted with each other. Um, Obviously, as often happens with Plato's dialogues, Socrates' view is the one that Plato was sort of like trying to promote, and you see that as other characters end up like sort of like giving him the lead and just merely responding to him. But there are some other really good responses to this. I could make like I haven't read this in a long time, but when I did, I wrote like a very long essay about this, and yeah, it's really interesting because from the different conceptions of love and freedom that you can get from here, you can very much get at the main schools of thought that came after. You can see the existentialists, you can see everything. Like, yeah, this contains many other schools of thought that sort of like are containing Agathon and every single one of the members of this symposium. But it's just enjoyable again and actually quite poetic, especially for Plato, you know, for the time and the style in which he used to write. Yeah. This used to be my favorite book on writing. It's incredibly, just very, very original, very fun. It's Ray Bradbury. You know Ray Bradbury. He's just really cool. Definitely, if you want to read a book on writing, this is the one I recommend the most. There is one that I am just about to finish, a few pages, like 3 pages away from the end, that is my new favorite one, but I would still recommend this one first. What an ugly edition. Okay, The Civilization and Its Discontents. Also with it has a very short essay about the oceanic feeling, something like that. There's a short essay at the beginning, not in this edition. In the edition that I read first, it had an essay of about 10 pages at the entrance, which was one of those small, slim Penguin editions about the oceanic feeling or something like that. That was also really good in itself. But I mean, The Civilization is Discontents is Freud, and for me, one of his best pieces of writing. Freud can sometimes be just nonsense and incredibly boring, and definitely he has a lot of nonsense here when he talks about the family in ancient times, of like trying to speak of the original family in order to demonstrate his psychoanalytic theory. He's just projecting the family that he knows in the present to the past, which just doesn't make any sense. The family there was no nuclear family in ancient tribes, in prehistoric tribes. So, but the book is very, very interesting. I don't remember much from this book. I just remember really, really liking it, using it for so many other essays. I found in it so much that you can take from it. And yeah, definitely read this book, especially if you wanna be familiar with Freud, if you wanna like learn about Freud and you don't know where to start. This is where he tries to diagnose his civilization. Try to figure out why is people not happy. You don't need to agree with it to see why it is so important and why it is so valuable. Then, if you are into playwriting and just into drama in general, but you have never read anything about it, The Three Uses of the Knife by David Mamet is a really good place to start. If you have already read a lot about drama, I don't recommend it. I found this very obvious. He makes some certain analogies with like the structure of a drama of plays that I just found like, yeah, I thought that when I was 5. But obvious and bad are 2 different things, and this is really good just to get the main concepts of drama, like the main ideas of how the narrative develops in plays and stuff. So yeah, that's it. And finally, this is my favorite pop science book, Symbiotic Planet. It tries to be a refutation of the Darwinist belief that evolution only happens through competition, and the way that Lynn Margulis, which is she was Carl Sagan's partner, but really we should say that Carl Sagan was Lynn Margulis's partner, because he was much more important to science, to the world of science, as far as I know. Her refutation to that is basically through cooperation. She says that evolution really happens through cooperation, and she gives many different examples and evidence of cooperation. She was a microbiologist, and she shows how, like, sometimes a parasite will be the detonant, the trigger of the creation of a new species, will allow a whole organism that was about to die because of the change of conditions in the environment to develop into something else. For example, with the fruit fly, in an experiment, she mentioned this experiment in a lab where, like, they would like put a bunch of fruit flies in the lab and warm up one of the sides where they are contained, of the container where they are, to like 1 degree higher than it's ideal for them to live, and then they would leave the other side on normal room temperature. And after a while, the fruit flies that were on the side of the glass where it was like just like too hot for them, couldn't reproduce with the other ones, but they could reproduce with each other, which is the minimal condition that is considered in science necessary for the birth of a new species. So there technically was like a new sort of like form of evolution of flies that basically adapted to the environment faster than the other ones, because they had different conditions. And they found out that the reason, the way they were able to assimilate that extra heat, was from a parasite that they had on their gut. So yeah, it's just very interesting to see the other side of evolution, cooperation, as definitely just as important, if not more, than competition. And that is all. I just wanted to talk about these books because I'm gonna have to send them away, and they are very short works of philosophy, not non-fiction. And I hope you enjoy them. Please let me know if you have read any of them. What do you think about it?